All right, welcome back to part two. We're going to move on to the other shelf here. Thanks for joining us. If you missed the first one, definitely check out part one so you don't miss any of the tour. We're moving on here. We've got a 242B lantern. You saw this yesterday in the earlier video on the top 5 lanterns that I would suggest to start out. That's a 242B lantern, great runner. Got a nice 99 size mantle on there, or 24 peerless if you will. Then we have one of the earlier models of the 220 series. This is the 228B. Some neat characteristics on this one. We're not going to skip the one in the middle. We'll get back to that. But this is a B, and this is a D. And obviously the vents are different. But how do you tell the difference between the D and the B? Well, the B has a threaded pump. The pump is actually threaded onto the fount, where the D is actually held on with screws. So if you're looking at the lamp and you can't tell which one's which, whether it's a D or a B, look for that feature. That's a distinguishing feature between those two lanterns, and you can tell the difference. Otherwise than that, looking at pictures, it's very difficult to tell. And of course, in the center, the 237 kerosene lantern. Again, kerosene cup in there, big old mantle on that one. Things of beast, they burn very, very bright. One of my favorites. I love the way they burn. You'll know, I love the bright lanterns. Now we're going to swing from the past kind of down to the future. This is kind of all the more modern lanterns that are here. Got a unleaded one lantern. This particular lantern was actually, I believe, spent some time in Germany. It's got German written all over it. Again, the single mantles were exported. So you saw the 286 earlier with the single mantle. They're from the Canadian market. This is kind of more the European market when you see these singles. This is sent over to the European market. And you've got the powerhouses. So the powerhouses are the size of these lanterns are kind of mimic the old 220 styles, the same 220 and 228s. Obviously, they don't make the big vents anymore, but they're the same size as these up here. These other little lanterns kind of shrunk down a little bit in the 285 series, and the 282 series more mimic that of the 200. So Coleman kind of built these lanterns after those series to kind of mimic and kind of follow them. So these over here are smaller than the 3 powerhouses in the middle. So if you see a powerhouse, you'll see it. Obviously, it has a much bigger stance, a bigger frame, bigger globes, bigger vents, and then you have the little ones on the sides. So you got a couple of powerhouses here. Coleman's unfortunately kind of kept the design the same for about the last I'd say 30 years or so. This particular one is from the 90s. This is from I think 2008, 2019. You can see there hasn't been much change. I wish Coleman would come up with a new design. I'm sure many of us do. And then you got the modern dual fuel with the early unleaded. These all can run on gasoline if needed. Wouldn't suggest it. You can do it. It's just going to make your generators gum up a lot quicker. White gas is kind of my preference, but if you were in a pinch and you needed to run them on gasoline, you certainly could. That's what they're designed to do. Then down here, one of my favorite shelves, obviously, is going to be the 200 shelf. I've got all my 200s back here from the black band. That's the steel band. These two particular lanterns had steel collars when they first came out with them, that eventually Coleman switched to aluminum. So they painted that one. They did not paint that one. 1952, 1953. So you can see some of the changes that they go to. Obviously, I don't have all the caps correct. Some of them are not original. They've been through they have many miles on them, and Lord knows if they could talk the stories they would tell. So you can see all the Coleman 200As that I have here. Obviously, the Berg is down here. Another brother of that one. There's a Christmas lantern down here. This is what I call the Canadian shelf down here. I've got a bunch of different Canadian lanterns, a couple 236s. Yes, I know that there are 2 in this 236s, and I don't repeat, but you see the vents, they're different. So that's why I'm holding on to those 2, because they're very distinctive. That vent is that vent that sits on that center 236 is very neat. Got the blue, I think that's quote me on it, a 321 lantern, or maybe a 621. I'd have to look that up. I'm not as good at Canadian. Got a big Canadian 220E in the back. That thing is massive. Got the Canadian nickel in the front here. This is a 621, or the Canadian turd. And then, of course, that one doesn't belong on the Canadian shelf, but it's sitting there. I didn't have anywhere else to put that. That is a 200B lantern from 1995. A little bit different design. It looks like a 200A, but it's got very distinct differences. The valve looks old-fashioned, but it's doesn't run anyway like the old 200s does. It's another one of those Schrader valves. Coming over here, I've got some more single stoves over here. I got a 501, a couple 440s, a 442, a 550. Got a military style 520 stove that was made in Canada in 1947, I believe. I might not have the date. And then the 502 with its partner, the heat drum. Cool little single stoves. Got a couple of propane things here. And then one of my favorite lanterns, if not the favorite, is my nickel 200 from 1950. This is what, when Coleman changed off the 242 and went to the 200s, this is actually a 200 versus these that are the 200As. When they went to the A's, they actually all became steel founts. This is a brass fount. Something to take into big consideration when you're doing maintenance is what kind of fount are you working with. Brass is much less forgiving. We're going to swing back over here and finish up back over here. You all saw the 152A lamp that's over here. Here's another non-Coleman. I recently picked this one up. And this one actually has a box with it. And there's a story behind this. This is an AGM model 3016. AGM, a lot of times you find them, they'll end up having stress cracks. The brass, they made these with brass founts. And unfortunately, the brass was very thin. And they usually wore, and you usually find them, they have cracks in them. And it's not recommended that you run them. This one, luckily, is actually a steel fount. And what makes this one cool, I don't have the box in front of me, is the box that this came with actually had a misprint. They labeled it as the 3116. So the box actually has an incorrect information on it, but it went with that box. So I thought that was kind of neat. It's a great little runner, single mantle. This is a Tilley lantern. I believe it's a 246B Tilley from Great Britain. A lot of Tilleys over there. Runs on kerosene. Really unique setup. That's called a vaporizer, not a generator that sits on. And then it pumps up with the little pip valve that sits over here. Had to do a lot of work to get this lantern going. It's kind of finicky, but it does work. Puts that nice light. It's really dirty and gets sooted up very easily. But one of my favorites, unique. All you Harry Potter fans out there, if you like Harry Potter and you look in their the last couple of movies, they've got Tilley lamps hanging up in their tents. I always get my kids going when I say Tilley. They're like, oh, Dad, just be quiet. But I love the Tilley lamps. One of the early ones, it's a Quick Light 327 model. It's got a reproduction mica globe in here by Mr. Kuntz. He does a fantastic job with those. That's a reproduction on there. Got the lighting door over there and the original Q99 generator. That's a Q99 in there. This is a slant model. This is a 220 slant with the small brim. And the reason we call it a slant is if you look in there and you can see the generator goes up at a slanted angle. And the valve is all the way down here. Very interesting, unique design model, but very hard to manufacture, I would imagine. That's probably why Coleman didn't stick with these too long. Original wing cap. These have to be, going back to this real quick, this actually has to be done and primed with a external pump. You can see there's no pump on this. You open this and put the pump on it here, and then you have to actually pump it externally. Coleman didn't infuse the pumps until they got up here to these slant models. And then I have two models that are very similar, although they don't share the same model number. This was a 227 with the big hat. And this is a really cool vent because this top nut is actually infused or inside of the vent. They built the vent around the top nut. So this is a 227 with the original mica. You see the mica door with the lighting door. There's an R55 generator, so you can run these on R55 or 99. The differences between the R55 and the 99 is that the R55 has a cleaning rod in it. The Q99s do not. So if they start running down, the only way to clean them is you got to take them apart. And they're a real bear from my understanding. I've never had to do one to take apart. So a lot of times people just switch over to the R55 generator. It does the same thing. Here's a 427 with the internal pump. I do not have one with the external pump, but they made these in many different forms. It's got an amber glow on it because I don't have the mica for it that it originally came with, so I figured I'd honor it with at least an amber glow. It looks good on it. It's got the original wing cap. Coming down here, another custom lantern that I did. I love this lantern. One of the first customs I did with the 200B sticker on that. Solid matte glossed black with the black top. Actually, it was a 288 that I put a 282 style vent on. There's the black powerhouse, or the original special edition powerhouse. Before it actually said special edition. I don't have the special edition, but that's a black powerhouse. So I've got the black and the green one. A couple of mil-specs. Mil-spec lanterns. I've got the S&P. This is one of the first lanterns I collected along with the 200A. And then later on I was able to grab a Coleman 1952 style mil-spec. So you'll see mil-specs were made by a bunch of different companies. Coleman made them. Armstrong, Thermos, S&P. There's many different manufacturers, and they kind of moved and switched throughout the history of the mil-spec. Really loud runners. We'll do a couple videos with those. These things scream when they're going. We're a little finicky to light, but these things absolutely scream when they go. And coming up here to the last line, we've got all my little minis. There's actually my daughter's mini. That's why it's gotten. She stole the globe off the 229. Said she wanted it, so I'll let her have it. You can see she's got the little pink label on it for hers. Equipped with bail handles. My daughter and my wife came up with this idea. So for everybody who's seen these, you all have met me and seen my daughter and my wife do these. They're great protectors. They allow the bail to not get so hot when it's up above here, and also protect it from slamming down. My wife do these with paracord. We've got them on quite a few of the lanterns. 226 model. It's upside down, it's backwards. Original globe on that. This is a Canadian. The only other Canadian I've got out here that's not with its buddies. Canadian Easy Light 222A. Got the dual fuel 229, again made to work on both white gas or gasoline. Then we have a 222B. I've got two of those. One's my daughter's and this one's mine. Then we have a Akron. Akron, I believe this is a 400G model. Kind of a really neat little lantern, neat little single with a unique vent on it. Really burns very well like this. The globe is actually fractured in the back. I haven't replaced it yet. And then last but not least, who could forget about the turds, the 275. Yes, I do have two of them. Why? Well, this is the 275. This is the 275A. There were some slight changes that Coleman made once. The first ones were a little temperamental. They're still temperamental, but the 275A can be a little less temperamental than the original one. But I have both models. That's the A, and that's the regular one. And that's going to do it for the collection up here. I have a couple other lamps downstairs that I have. There's a quick light lamp downstairs, and there's also an American Gas Machines number 2 heater downstairs that I redid. Got all my cases over here. You'll see what's not there. I don't have any guillotine cases. They seem to elude me for whatever reason. But that's okay. We'll eventually, I'm sure, find one and pick one up. So that's the Lantern Cave. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll catch you up in a few minutes. We're going to do another video outside and talk about different gas types. Hope you'll stay tuned.